Genesis Owusu just released his new album, The Struggler or Struggler, and I think this one has to be one of the best albums of the entire year. I think Genesis really killed it on this one. In my opinion, The Struggler, it really takes that kind of neo soul sound that Genesis had on Smiling with No Teeth and kind of turns it up to a whole new fever pitch with the new like post punk elements he threw into this one. And I think it really just takes the music up to a whole new level. I really feel like it sounds a lot like Eve Toomer and that type of music, but it takes that same neo soul sound that he had before and it kind of expands on it. And I feel like it works really well. You look at his first couple singles on this album, and it was Leaving the Light, which I think is a really hard and just good neo soul song, or not neo soul song, post punk song, and then Tied Up is more neo soul like and like funk, and then Stay Blessed, which came out a couple days ago, is more like dance punk, and I feel like they all work really well, and they're all, I don't know, it really just is a new like switch of Genesis into a new kind of sound with that post punk, synth punk, dance punk style, and I feel like it works really well. I mean, throughout this album, there are some like callbacks to the neo soul sound with "Stuck to the Fan" and "That's Life a Swamp," which is a little bit like softer songs. But I feel like overall, he really comes in with this nice, just heart pounding music the entire time, especially with the bass lines and the synths throughout this entire album. It just works really well, and I think Genesis really killed it on this one. I think there's a lot of good music here, and I bought tickets to go to see this one in person, and I feel like this is going to be a crazy album in person just because there's so much energy here. I feel like Genesis is an artist that brings a lot of energy in his normal music if he can. Like, if you look on Smiling with No Teeth, there are a lot of neo-soul songs, but there are some, like, harder ones like Black Dogs or On the Move. And I think those songs really are kind of what took Genesis into this sound here. And I have to say, Struggler has to be one of the best albums of the year so far. I mean, to me right now, we got George Clinton's Ooh Rap-A-Ya as probably my top album of the year, but this one definitely is competing with it. I don't know if I'd really say any of these songs on here are that like outstanding of tracks. I think Leaving the Light is a great song, but would I say it's one of the top like 5 tracks of the year? I don't think so, but I think this is one of the most solid throughout the entire track length album of the year. I feel like at least with this album, every single song on here is like an 8, and those 38 minutes are not wasted at all. Every single song on here just packs a punch, and it really just gives you a gut punch the entire time. And I think Genesis really killed it with this one. I feel like, like I said before, this is probably a good improvement on Smiling with No Teeth, which is still a great album in its own right. And I really think he puts in a lot more like rock type of vibe into this one, where I think it's more post-punky, where it's like the bass lines and the synths are like really hitting the whole time, especially on like Leaving the Light. Like Leaving the Light, great song. And I just feel like there's so much more energy that Genesis brings on this one. And it's it's a nice switch. But throughout this entire thing, you can just hear the like rock influence, or like the alternative rock, I feel like is what it is, where it's like these like kind of grimy sounds. And like I said, I'm not really in the Australian music scene. Like, I mean, maybe some of you who are watching this video are, because I'm not from Australia, but Genesis really put in some great music out here. He put out some great music, and I feel like I don't know where these actual influences come from, but I feel like it really sounds good, and it really is a big, not step up in terms of music from Genesis, but it's a step forward. It's not the same music he was making before, and I think that's really where it goes well. And I think, throughout the entire thing, there are a few like lulls where it takes that energy that it really starts off banging with Leaving the Light, and then there's some lulls throughout the songs, like with The Old Man, Freak Boy, That's Life, and then Stuck to the Fan. But they all come back with energy throughout the entire thing. And even those lulls, it's like it gives you a nice soft song with those super energetic songs. And I feel like, I don't know, Genesis just really killed it with this one. I think this has to be one of the best albums of the year. And I'm really looking forward to seeing this one on tour. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Genesis puts out next. I mean, this is an artist who has put out two albums in 2 years. So like every 2 years, it looks like he's putting out an album, and these ones seem to like it's not a sophomore slump here, is what I'm saying. It really seems like he's putting in a lot of good work in both these albums, and I don't know. I want to see more music coming out of Australia. I feel like Genesis is the only Australian artist I do listen to. So if there are some other good like Australian artists that are coming out with similar music to this, I'd be really hyped to listen to it. But it really works in these kind of like grimy artists that I feel like I've taken over this year, like Scaring the Hose by JPEG Mafia and Danny Brown is like kind of grimy, and then you have like something like Gene Dawson has put out some tracks, and you'd say Slow Tie. I don't really know if I support Slow Tie anymore, but Slow Tie has some like good grimy music. Eve Toomer has some good grimy music, and I feel like a lot of the bigger albums this year that have had pretty solid critical acclaim have all been these kind of grimy albums. I feel like this is going to fit right in. This, to me, is probably, one of the better albums of the year. Just looking at Rate Your Music, it's probably going to slot in probably top 10-ish. I don't know. I feel like this is a great album, and Genesis, if you are listening to this one, this is just a great album here, and I think you've really... like I said, I wouldn't say outdone yourself, because I feel like the expectations from me were at least high, especially with the singles, but it really is a very solid 11-track run throughout the entire thing. And even the That's Life, A Swamp is a 5-minute track. It doesn't make me feel like bored at all through the entire thing. I feel like every single thing is a nice pump of energy. And especially when you have an 11-track, 38-minute album, I feel like it works really well. I've seen like Olivia Rodrigo fans were hating on her for Guts being around 37 minutes or 36 minutes. It's like that is on the shorter side for an album, but you can't say that an album that's 38 minutes long and 11 tracks isn't going to usually come at you with the best music in your life that you ever had. Like, you look at something like Igor, a lot of times when they have those shorter albums, it hits a lot harder and you have a better pack-a-punch type thing. I'd say like 40 minutes is a good album as well, but I don't know. Either way, this is a really good album from Genesis. Owusu. Struggler has to be one of the best albums of the year. I will say, terrible album cover. Like, I understand it, but I just wish he used his Spotify photo as it. Like, his Spotify photo is just like him, and then there's like a dark side and a light side, and then there's the red stripe right down his face. I feel like that would look way better. Or the Leaving the Light. The Leaving the Light album cover is a banger. Either way, though, it's a great album. Thank you, Genesis. And I just got to give this one an 8 out of 10.